Oh, it's good. It took all year, but Puss in Boots: The Last Wish has been released, and I finally dragged myself to the theater, and it's good. Is this the best movie that I've seen all year? No. Is this the best looking movie I've seen all year? Absolutely. Is this the best animated movie I've seen all year? Yes. Was it worth going to a theater to see? Yes. Do I think that it's better than Spider-Verse? Maybe. Did I like this more than Turning Red? Will Puss in Boots: The Last Wish win the Oscar? Probably not. Should it? Yes. This movie, in my opinion, is the best representative of Hollywood studio animation excellence for the year of 2022. I really like Turning Red, and it represents its own piece of progress. There's a lot to appreciate there. And if you want more of my thoughts on that movie, there is a video. But if you've been hanging around here for a while, then you know that my gripe with Disney/Pixar animation over the last 5 or so years is that the raw horsepower on display is fantastic. But ultimately, a lot of their movies are improved, highly polished versions of the other stuff that they've been doing for years now. And yes, at its very center, Puss in Boots 2 is another sequel in the Shrek cinematic universe, which is a mildly embarrassing phrase. Narrative innovation is not something that this movie offers. And the character of Puss in Boots definitely isn't the most interesting, but everything else. The rest of this video is all buts. Please don't take that out of context. This is the stuff. If you want to know what excites me about animation, then please take note as I gesture vigorously in the direction of this movie. I was a little bit worried. I've been excited for this movie since the teaser trailer, but a lot of the ads that I saw more recently emphasized, jokes and standard kid movie moments more than all that incredible frame-limited animation and painted work that we had seen in those trailers early on. I thought maybe the movie wouldn't do all that much with its art direction, maybe just a few cool moments at most, and then the rest would feel very much like a standard CG movie circa 2012. But that's not what happened. Actually, the opposite happened. The visuals of this movie are so full of energy and ideas and creativity, they overshadow the somewhat bland and intensely predictable plot and character arcs. We've seen plenty of snippets of the opening sequence of this movie in the trailers, but the way that it actually plays out is so perfect. I try to avoid that word, but this sequence does everything that the opening of a movie needs to do, and it does all of that while also being fun, funny, and gorgeous. This is one of the most confident openings that I can remember. It honestly feels like a flex, especially after that new DreamWorks logo that plays before the movie that is, just supposed to remind us of all the good movies they've done. I didn't see Over the Hedge included there. But really, this felt like the team was going, this is what we can do now. So if you aren't familiar, this movie has this art direction that emphasizes painted work. There are still 3D models, of course, at the center, but textures and backgrounds just look like paintings most of the time. An object in the foreground might just be a loose mix of like 2 or 3 colors. Certain objects might have gaps that would technically be impossible in real life, but it doesn't matter because everything here has a cohesive look. There were even a few shots where the backgrounds were just 2D paintings, no depth at all, and I thought that was wonderful. I wish I could show you more examples because that's the best way to illustrate all of this, but I don't have a copy of the movie yet. I will get one eventually. Overall, this style is applied so beautifully that I think the movie's worth watching just to see it in action. And then there's the animation. I have been calling this frame-limited animation, where certain actions only have like a small handful of individual unique frames, whereas in a more standard CG movie, they might be animated smoothly. Spider-Verse used this technique a lot, so did the Lego movie, so did Mitchell's vs. the Machines, and so does plenty of anime and other bits of animation. And now, The Last Wish is doing it too, though not throughout the entire thing. It's really only in big action moments that characters will be frame limited in this way, sometimes in front of just like solid color backgrounds. The purpose of the technique is to emphasize the actions. You have more time to take in the individual frames, and when those frames are as good as they are here, it really helps to burn those images and moments into my memory. I will say that it did feel a bit distracting when it was used on some of the like NPC characters who more or less just look like regular CG folk. I guess because you can't digress too far from the standard sort of Shrek movie humans look. But on the character of Puss especially, this technique really escalates the action and makes you feel like you're watching a film in italics. Maybe you've had this feeling before, but you might be watching the first few minutes of a movie, and at some point, you just know that the team behind it is really good at what they do. And you know that what you're about to watch is going to be something special. I know it sounds kind of dramatic, but that's really what I'm looking for all the time when I watch movies and shows. I want to get excited about them and recommend them and talk about them, which is also probably why I post videos on the internet. And let's not forget about this movie's environments. Both Puss in Boots movies are heavily inspired by classic westerns, and that is supported by this vague fairy tale Spain backdrop that we get here, but we actually only spend the first act or so in this setting before we take off for a magical forest that changes completely based on the soul of whoever's holding the magical treasure map. But come to think of it, you know what's an even more creative and beautiful setting? How about like a hotel? Do you remember when Sonic the Hedgehog got into all those hijinks at the hotel? And later on in the movie, when they go to a town somewhere, did DreamWorks really think that I would want to hang out in this colorful alternate dimension of adventure and mystery? I don't know. They must be falling behind the times. And since the environment is inseparable from our characters and their development, I guess I should talk now about our leads and their motivations. So Puss in Boots is on his last life, which makes him afraid of dying, which makes him unable to be the wild, death-defying hero version of himself, and he's frantically chasing down an opportunity to become his old self again. Kitty Softpaws wants to be able to trust other people for once. That's about it. And Perrito, that's the best pronunciation you're gonna get, doesn't want anything more than what he already has, which is friends. I know, it's just a smidge overdone, but I promise that it's only slightly eye-rolling in action. So Puss's arc is actually pretty compelling, not because I'm on the edge of my seat the whole time waiting to see whether he will end up bettering himself, but because we can interpret this as an examination of the stereotypical swashbuckling hero characters. These kinds of characters usually stay exactly themselves until the bitter end. They fight the bad guys because evil must be defeated, and if you're looking for depth, look elsewhere. And Puss's journey toward vulnerability wasn't exactly tear-jerking. I wasn't blown away, but it did feel different enough. And when I don't feel like I can expect genuinely new ideas or structures from a story like this one, it's still nice to see the old standards done really well. Okay, antagonists. We have Goldilocks and her adoptive family of 3 bears. The bears want to do crime and also be a family, and Goldilocks has her own set of desires that she keeps secret. Then our big bad is Big Jack Horner, voiced by John Mulaney, I guess. They kind of make it a joke that Jack Horner is so thinly written. He basically has an inferiority complex despite having every privilege possible. He's mostly just evil, and he continues to do evil things up until the very end. I am a little bit disappointed that the Goldie and 3 Bears story didn't really feel very substantial. It starts to flesh out when we see the origins of their relationship, but then it resolves very quickly, and they just leave the movie. I really liked the voice performances for these characters too, so it felt like they could have done with more attention, but this movie is pretty brisk overall, so I'm not shocked that Puss and his buddies get the most screen time. My least favorite portion of the movie was the resolution. I won't give any details because, why would I spoil this one? But this scene is just when the movie feels its most generic. It's quiet, it's a little awkward, and our characters hammer home the completion of their arcs. It's pretty lackluster. So it's not a mind-blowing script, but it's dressed up to a degree where I really don't care. Just keep giving me these visuals, these action sequences, and these backgrounds. I've been trying to stay kind of reserved for this video. I think that it's important to try to be articulate in my thoughts on a movie, but I also think it's important to give you an idea of how I felt while I was actually watching the movie. So I'm going to try to do that now. I mean, it was fun. It was so much fun. We actually didn't have too many people in the theater. It was like a few families, a lot of tourists in the area, that kind of thing. And then me alone trying to take notes. People really warmed up to the movie. I think they were having a good time. People really started to laugh as, certain jokes started to pay off in the latter half of the movie. They really liked certain characters. Dog character people seemed to like quite a bit. And yeah, plenty of kids there. They seemed engaged. I don't know. It was a wonderful time. I don't usually enjoy going to the movies all that much, and I definitely don't go all that much anymore at all. But I'm really glad I did. I'm glad I got a good seat. It kind of reminded me of seeing Spider-Verse in the theater for the first time. Similar feelings in certain moments, certain sequences, especially the action stuff. They're really doing it to the nines, and I can't wait to rewatch a bunch of times and get a better idea of individual frames. I'd love to get a bunch of frame captures and stuff. It was lovely. It was a great afternoon spent at the cinema. So, should you watch this movie? Yes. Should you watch it in a theater? Yes, if possible. Should you sit in the front row? No, but try to get pretty close unless you're easily overwhelmed by crazy visuals. Will this win the Oscar? Yes.